The hidden language of Billie Eilish's hair, every color, a transformation: green, red, gray, yellow. One day like the fire of hell, the next like the cold waves of the sea. Billie Eilish never just dyed her hair. She rewrote who she was every single time. Every color was a chapter. Every strand, a feeling, a trauma, a rebirth. Today I'll tell you the story hidden behind those colors. Because Billie Eilish's hair wasn't an image, it was a manifesto. And maybe that's why the world never truly figured her out. Because while she changed her look, she was encoding her emotions, like secret notes in a song. She was a painter who shouted through color instead of words. Every hue was a confession. Every shade, a hidden truth. Born from the dark, the story of the Black Roots. When Billie Eilish first appeared on the scene, she arrived in a quiet kind of darkness. Her natural hair was dark brown, but she turned it jet black, almost like ink. It was as if she was saying, "Don't try to figure me out," as if she were the whispering symbol of a generation living in shadows. That era carried the same theme as her songs: melancholy, solitude, the inner voice. Her black hair was like a curtain hiding the chaos of emotion. And that curtain became part of what made her Billie: dark, mysterious, and strangely pure. That color was her armor. No matter how bright the stage lights burned, her black hair absorbed them, protecting her from the glare. She entered fame knowing that brightness can blind. So she chose the dark, and in doing so, she learned how to make darkness her friend. That black wasn't just a color, it was a shield. When the world looked too loud, she could hide behind it and breathe. In those shadows, Billie found the silence that fame tried to steal from her. Darkness became her sanctuary, and from that quiet, her truest melodies began to form. Gray. Before the world knew her around 2016, she dyed her hair a frosty silver gray. The world didn't really know her yet, but with that color, she quietly declared the beauty of being different. Gray is a neutral tone, neither warm nor cold. Just like Billie's state of mind back then, suspended between extremes, trying to find her path. In an interview, she said, "I don't know who I want to be, but I sure know who I don't want to be." Her gray hair was the symbol of that uncertainty, the first brushstroke in the painting of her identity. That gray period was a silent storm. She looked calm in photos, but beneath that calm, fear and curiosity were colliding. Gray was her in-between color, not quite a beginning, not quite an end. It was a pause before a quiet inner revolution. The gray days were filled with questions about identity, art, and belonging. She was building herself from fragments, testing boundaries with every lyric. That color wasn't dullness, it was balance, a fragile truce between her chaos and her calm. And in that neutrality, she learned how to listen to her own voice: blue, the glow of melancholy. Then came the unforgettable phase: electric blue hair. It was the "when the party's over" and "bury a friend" era. The sadness in her voice reflected vividly in her hair. Blue, though often cold, became a shout of freedom on Billie's head. But behind the color was another story. Billie was battling depression. And that blue wasn't sadness, it was survival. Through it, she whispered to the world, "I'm still here." There was a quiet power in that blue. In every song, every video, that shade followed her like an emotional signature. Even her tears seemed tinted blue. But the irony, that very melancholy made her stronger. Blue became the color that saved her from the dark. Blue was the sound of her heartbeat at night. Slow, steady, honest. It carried the weight of someone learning to live with herself. That color was her therapy, a visible wound she no longer wanted to hide. Through blue, she transformed pain into poetry, proving that sadness can be beautiful when it becomes art. Green and black, the explosion of rebellion. Then came the iconic look: neon green roots with black ends. It was unlike anything anyone had seen. Billie Eilish was no longer just an artist. She was an emblem. Green represents nature, but it's also the color of poison. And Billie had become the antidote and the venom of the pop industry. Even at the Grammys, She stood dressed head to toe in shades of green, a fashion statement turned protest. "That's the color everyone knew me for," she later said. "But I didn't want to be that color anymore." The green era was both her peak and her exhaustion. The world had boxed her into an image, but Billie was far too wild to be caged. During that time, Billie was paying the price of freedom. While fans adored her courage, she was fighting to protect her true self. The green looked vibrant on the outside, but it burned quietly within. It was a rebellion, yes, but also a confession of fatigue. The neon roots screamed louder than any lyric ever could. It was a warning and a celebration all at once, a declaration that she refused to play by the industry's rules. With each appearance, Billie blurred the line between fashion and protest. Green became her war paint, wild, defiant, unforgettable. Yellow, the son of rebirth. In 2021, she went platinum blonde and the internet erupted. Her new look heralded the happier-than-ever era. This time, melancholy gave way to confidence, femininity, and maturity. Underneath that golden glow was symbolism, someone who had walked through darkness and finally embraced the light. She was no longer the gloomy teen, but a woman glowing with scars that had turned to gold. As Billie said herself, "I'm finally at peace with myself." And this hair color is proof of that peace. This era felt like a sunrise. Her music softened, her voice became raw and vulnerable. Her blonde hair shone like the morning light, calm yet unbreakable. Self-love had become her rebellion, and she wore it proudly. With blonde hair came vulnerability, the courage to be seen without armor. The light she once feared now illuminated her. Every photo, every performance radiated peace instead of pain. It was as if she had finally exhaled after years of holding her breath. Yellow wasn't vanity. It was victory. Pink. Redefining femininity. It was brief but unforgettable. Pink, often dismissed as sweet or girly, became something new in Billie's hands. Even with cotton candy tones, she stayed unapologetically defiant. The message was clear. Femininity isn't weakness. It's power. Billie Eilish was redefining what it meant to be a woman on her own terms. When she stepped on stage with pink hair, people were stunned. But her confidence silenced the skepticism. She hadn't changed. She had evolved. Her softness had teeth now, and she knew exactly how to bear them. That soft pink carried a quiet revolution. It challenged every stereotype that tried to define her womanhood. In that pastel tone, Billie built a bridge between power and tenderness. She showed that vulnerability can roar, and that strength doesn't always have to wear black boots and baggy clothes. Red, passion, anger, and artistic fire. When Billie turned red, she looked like a volcano ready to erupt. The color mirrored her fire within. In her art, there was no fear anymore, only boldness. Red brought out her courage and passion in full bloom. It was also a kind of farewell to her younger self, her old image, and her buried fears. Her performances burned brighter than ever. Red was her crescendo, the high note of her evolution. She wasn't suppressing emotions anymore. She was setting them ablaze on stage. It was the color of her liberation. Red was her unfiltered truth. Every scream, every confession, every rebirth wrapped in flame. It was the sound of an artist who no longer asked for permission. The more she burned, the brighter she became. In that intensity, she wasn't seeking approval anymore, only authenticity. Return to dark brown, the circle completed. And then, after all those colors, Billie returned to her natural dark brown. The same tone she began with, but this time, it felt entirely different. She'd been through every shade of herself and come full circle. Like every great story, it ended with, "And she found herself at last." Over the years, she hadn't just dyed her hair. She had painted her identity. That return was quiet, but powerful. She no longer needed colors to express her emotions. She had found them within. It wasn't an ending. It was completion. The truest Billie Eilish was finally enough, just as she was. Returning to brown was like closing a sacred loop. This time, she didn't hide in the dark. She glowed within it. It wasn't the same girl who once wanted to disappear. It was a woman who had finally met her own gaze in the mirror. The brown roots symbolized grounding, peace, and homecoming. Final. The Billie Beyond color. Billie Eilish's hair was never just a trend. It was a map of her soul. Each tone was a chapter of her life. She hid her fears in black, cried in blue, rebelled in green, and was reborn in yellow. And every time, we transformed with her. So next time Billie Eilish appears with a new hair color, don't just say, wow, she looks different. Because that color might be the start of a new album, a new idea, or a brand new Billie. Because Billie's story teaches us something timeless. Change isn't weakness, it's an art form. Every color is a way to rediscover yourself. And maybe, when we finally find the colors within us, that's when we start telling our own story. Maybe that's what makes Billie timeless. She never stays still. Her evolution reminds us that identity isn't fixed. It's fluid, alive, ever-changing. She taught us that transformation isn't about erasing who you were, but honoring every version that got you here. In the end, Billie didn't just change colors. She changed what color means.